It's a very, look at that poor depressed person.
All teenagers are going through really similar things right now because everything's crazy.
Hello, and welcome to Kids Are Talking. We have a really great show for you tonight. We're talking about ADD, the mystery and the challenges. So we have a group of kids coming in, and we're going to start the show really soon. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you have any comments and you're watching, please add those comments to the chat on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch. We'll try to bring you into the show. If you want to be on a future show, again, let us know. You can also visit us at kidsartalking.live, and we'd love to pull you in. So we're open. We want to hear all your voices, and we're looking forward to it. So without further ado, let me bring on Dr. Don, family therapist, specialist on communication, author of 9 books, and a really awesome guy, Dr. Don. How you doing, Doc?
Well, Mike, thank you. That's the best introduction you've given me yet.
I've been working on that one.
Yeah, and on a show that tonight is very profound for you and I, because it's about ADHD. And for any confusion, when we have the guests on, they'll tell you more about what ADHD is for them. And the confusion now is that the DSM-5 no longer makes it about just ADD, ADHD. It's just called ADHD. So for all of you who are here to learn and get confused by that, that's one of the reasons why we have my experts on who are all living all of this. And they'll do that later on. So the DSM-5 is actually...
What's that DSM-5?
Oh,
when I was diagnosed...
Yeah, that's good. Diagnostic manual, the psychological diagnostic.
Oh, okay. Because I was diagnosed maybe, what was that, 25, 30 years ago with just ADD. I don't think there was an H back then.
So good for you. For me, a product of the 60s, my father just told me I was lazy. And if I continue to do what I'm doing in school, I'll never get to college. And never sent me for therapy. And my father was a psychoanalyst. So that just goes to show you then his denial and the denial of what was going on with somebody like me during that time. So we've come a long way, as this show will show tonight. But it's an ADD world. And actually, a therapist called me yesterday, which will also be part of the show, to tell me that he has ADD. And he said, this show tonight, we'll be talking about a lot about inattention. He says this show will get a lot of attention. I said, that's a very interesting irony. Yes, a show about inattention will be getting the country's attention tonight, because this is one of the great secrets. I lived with this secret for a very long time. And as a matter of fact, in the book with my father, The Inside Ride, when I wrote the original book, my father, my son, My best friend said to me she didn't like the book because I wasn't honest, because she was somebody that knew my deep, dark secrets. So in my new book, I finally confess that how much influence and pain and struggle I had around having that undiagnosed part of me all those years.
Well, that's funny because I always find you super honest. I find that you're very straightforward and honest. So maybe in your writings you weren't, but I think face to face you are. I think on the show you are. So it's great.
now, Mike. But
yeah,
when I was a basketball star and making every shot, I had such an investment in being a star because I was covering up. It actually ruined my basketball career because I was hiding my feelings of being stupid and sometimes even felt retarded. I felt like there was something seriously wrong with me and I didn't fit in with everybody, but nobody knew that. And so I invested in being a basketball star, and almost too much so that it actually ruined my career because it was so important to me that I became a has-been at a very young age because it was covering up and compensating for my big secret of not really feeling very good about myself.
Well, you should feel great because
thanks, Mike.
And we can talk about all that on the show with the kids.
We can talk about that all. Yes, as a matter of fact, just so you know, 6.1 million people, teenagers, have ADHD, and 388,000 children aged 2 to 5 have it in the United States.
Is that over-diagnosed?
Well, we're going to get into that tonight also, because that's a big controversy.
It seems like a lot of people to have something that's labeled as a disorder, right?
Yeah. So, but here's the problem with that comment, Mike. The problem with that comment, which we're going to talk about tonight, is that ADD, became very popular catch-all phrase, and everybody wants to have ADD and thought they had ADD because, first of all, they wanted on-time testing. They wanted to be treated special.
Well, because the last D stands for disorder, right?
Yes.
In ADHD.
Yes.
But it's not really, I don't see it as a disorder. I see it as just a different way to learn, a different way to experience the world.
But there are people that are really skeptical about ADD and ADHD. And I think tonight I can tell you that right now it's the real deal. Mm-hmm. We have it. The kids on the show will let you know how it's affected their life. Justin Timberlake has it. Simone Biles has it. Adam Levine from Maroon 5 has it. Mm-hmm. And actually, this is Michael Phelps has it.
That's a lot.
I had to look at my notes.
A lot of celebrities.
How could I forget Michael Phelps? So I'm just name dropping a little to show you that this is it's in the news. It's real.
Well, let's name drop a couple more names.
Sure.
How about we drop our sponsors' names? Okay, because we are sponsored by Kids.
Kids Are Talking is sponsored by Paradigm Financial Partners. Align your values and financial goals. Build your wealth and financial security for a rich and satisfying life with Paradigm Financial Partners.
And I'd just like to say, without our sponsors, the show would be a lot more difficult. So thank you to them. They help bring all this to the public. So I think without any further ado, we should bring the kids on, right?
Let's bring the stars.
Okay, let's bring the stars on, and I will head backstage.
Yeah. You head backstage, Mike. But it's good to see you again and have this thing in common with you as well. Okay, there they are. So we've got David on the bottom left.
How you doing, my guy?
Good to see you, David. I'm glad we got you here, man. It's good.
I
wasn't sure we could get you here, but we got you here.
Hey, man, sometimes you just got to flip a couple of stones, but you got to make it work, man,
Well, thank you for being here. And Whitley.
It's an honor, sir.
Nice to have you. And Whitley, nice to have you back.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to be back.
You're multidimensional because we had you on Body Image, but this one I know is like a deep, dark. You probably relate to some of the things I was saying. This is deep in your soul.
Yes, sir.
And then we have Ezra. Thanks for you being here, Ezra. And,
yeah, you're welcome. Hi.
Good to have you, man.
And,
and then we have Sophie. And I should say this is an interesting foursome because, Sophie, you're going to be a freshman in Weston High School, right? Right, Sophie? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's right.
And Ezra, you're going to be a freshman at Staples High School.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
And then we have Whitley, who's a senior in North Carolina. And then there's David, you're done with high school, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
You're out of that.
20 years of age.
You had enough, right?
Yes.
I had enough myself.
I think they had enough of me, honestly.
So Ezra, what I would be, God bless you, man. I get it. I really do. Ezra, why don't you help? Because we're all, as I always say every week, we're here to learn.
Yeah.
So each one of you, give me your own feelings about what it is to have ADHD and what it means, so people understand. Because it's now people get confused with ADD and ADHD, and now it's all under ADHD.
Yeah.
So maybe you can help. All of you can just start the show by helping people understand what that means.
At least to me, what ADHD is, it's like a random burst of energy for some stuff. Oh, mine too.
I would love to jump in first, if anything, sir.
What'd you say?
Oh,
Dave?
if you want, what?
I said I would love to jump in first.
Oh, you want to jump in first?
Oh, yeah, you do that.
Don't worry, David. You're going to get a chance. Let Ezra talk. Well, how about we'll make you second, okay? All right. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let Ezra do his thing, and then you can. All right.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's just like a random burst of energy. Sometimes focus. Sometimes I'll just hyper focus on something and I'll just go straight forward. Other times I'll just I can't do anything. I can't do the thing I need to do, and I'll just be doing something else. Yeah. To me, that's what ADHD is.
And what's the difference between ADHD and ADD, David?
I would just personally say, the technical aspect was that the ADD side of things, you were more forgetful, disassociated. You weren't really on the hyper side, but you're inattentive, And then the ADHD, something that I that I undergo. It just gives you a lot more energy to everything that you might like.
More activity, right? More movement, more activity. Ezra, what do you?
With every event.
Ezra, what do you feel the difference is between ADD and ADHD?
I think David basically said it perfectly. It's just that, it's it's kind of like they're more or less the same, but there's just more hyperactivity when it comes to ADHD. Yeah.
It does seem to feel like it really overlaps, and I think it gets confusing because it's always been thought of as ADD, and I think people get confused by that. Sophie and Whitley, do you want to add anything to what David and Ezra said?
Yeah, I think now what they're saying with the terminology is it's all under ADHD, but you either have ADHD, but like the inattentive kind where you just kind of space out a lot, or ADHD, but hyperactive and impulsive where you just, like Ezra and David said, you have those little bursts of energy and hyper focusing and you're impulsive, or you have both. So
sometimes I have to run. Sometimes when I see David at work, I have to run after him because he's moving around.
Yes.
Sophie, did you want to add to that? You look like you wanted to say something. Did you?
Well, I guess I can kind of agree with everything that they're saying because, yeah, it's you can have energy and just focus a lot or just not focus at all. Or you can just have the symptoms of ADD, but still have I don't know how to say it. Yeah.
That's how you say it. Yeah. Right. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
What's it like? So let me ask you, Sophie, what's it like living with this experience of being this kind of person?
Well, I guess at school it's kind of the hardest because I get really frustrated easily. And so I'd just be I'd just be doing fine doing something at work, just doing my math homework, for example. And then I just immediately lose focus. I can't do it. And it frustrates me. So I want to cry. And so I do. And that causes a distraction. So it's kind of a frustrating thing for me to have because it causes so many problems with my work.
And during COVID, what was it like? Were you on remote during COVID?
I was remote mostly half of the school year. And I'll just say it was awful. My grades were so bad because I just couldn't focus at all. I'd start something else and then I get really worried because I have something else missing. So I'd work on that and then not finish the other thing that I have to do. And I just look out the window because my desk was right there and the window was right next to me. So I just look out the window all of class and it would be really annoying. So
and you got creative during that time, though, didn't you? Did you discover some things about yourself that you had never known
Yeah,
before?
I didn't know I was this bad until online school. So yeah.
Did you start playing the ukulele? I heard something that you started playing. Was that before or during COVID, or
Oh,
you
it
found some
was
creative niche?
COVID. At the beginning of COVID, I taught myself how to play because I had nothing else to do. So
Well, that's really good, and that's good. You're enjoying it.
it's fun, yeah.
And Whitley, how about you? In terms of what's it like living?
Well, I think Ezra disagreed with something Sophie
Oh, did
said.
you
I
disagree
wanted.
with something,
I
Ezra?
saw him nodding his head. I
Oh,
wanted
Mike
him
is
to add
my
in.
third eye. Okay, Ezra, did you?
Wait. Oh wait, I didn't mean to nod my head. Sorry.
When Sophie was talking about distance learning being harder.
Oh yeah, no, that I was reading that. Yeah, it was horrible. It was all around. It was just really bad. There would be times where I'd be like, I have to sit at a screen for like 2.5, like 4 to 5 hours, and they wouldn't even let us like get up. It was awful.
Well, for you,
Yeah,
I guess Go ahead. You want to say something, Sophie?
Oh, I'm just saying you can't really get up and leave. You have to ask the teacher to leave.
There was one time where like I needed to use the bathroom, the teacher wasn't there, and then when I when I returned, they got mad at me for going to the bathroom.
That's happened
Really?
to me.
Wow. Yeah.
It
was overall, it was always really annoying having to do that stuff.
But you had a different problem because you were on remote all year, and your brother has,
Oh yeah, my brother, he has a autoimmune disease, so if he got COVID, he would just be, he was not going to survive that. So we had to stay very careful the entire time. So throughout the entire year, I was just doing online school, and there was many times where like my teacher just did not care. Like many times where the teachers would either forget to let me work on a project, not like actually sign me into like testing areas, or either just sometimes not let me into the class. And I almost failed one of my classes because of that.
Why was he doing that?
They just didn't care. They just didn't realize that they were doing that.
And also, your friends went back. They all went back, and you
they all went back.
That was hard for you socially, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's rolling back. It's rolling back out.
So that's good. That's really good. And Whitley, for you, what was it like for you during COVID?
I stayed online all year too. So it was difficult. It's definitely, for me, it was a lot more difficult being online than going back in school, just because there were so many distractions, because my phone was right there and I could get on it, or I was just at home, so I could really do whatever I wanted. But I tried to get out little like systems to organize things. Like whenever I took notes, I would color code them. So like I would use different colored pens for everything. Like I used a purple pen for like definitions, and like light blue just for random notes, and like green for like important names. So like I had to figure out how to organize and like make schedules every week of what day I needed to do each assignment, because if I didn't do that, I was going to fail all my classes because I just couldn't get it done.
So what's the impact for you? Do your friends, have you been open about having ADHD with your friends? Is this a coming out for you? Is it something that you feel comfortable with talking about and sharing?
Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed whenever the summer going into 5th grade. Mm-hmm. So I've had it for a while, but I didn't tell any of my friends really up until like this past week, because I was talking about being on the show and they were asking like what the episode was going to be about. So I was like, oh, it's going to be about like ADHD. And so I was like, oh, I should probably tell them I have it. Because I was diagnosed whenever I was so young, like a lot of kids just don't understand what it is, or they just make assumptions. And as a kid, I didn't really just want to deal with all of that. So I was just like, oh, well, I'll just tell them when we're a little bit older. And then it's not really something that you just bring up in a conversation randomly. You're just like, oh yeah, by the way, I have ADHD. So I really just told the majority of my friends like in this past week, which they were all cool with it. They were just all like, okay, yeah. And then
it was fine. It was fine. It was probably a relief to you, right?
Yeah. Like it wasn't as much about keeping it a secret. It was just at this point, like, I don't even know how to bring it up.
Well, it's good that you're out and brave of you to come on and talk, because it really sits with you, David, doesn't it? I mean, for you, you're out of high school. What has it been like for you?
I was about to
living with this, having this. I mean, when were you diagnosed?
Since I've been 9 years old, sir. So around like my third-ish grade. Yeah, it's been a while.
So what has it been like
To
for
say the
you?
least.
What's it been like for you?
Um, I mean, just for like my prime example, I guess, like bringing it back to COVID. I'm a person who, like, along with ADHD, I suffer with low iron disability, as in like I'm anemic and I fall asleep when I don't stimulate my body.
You got to move. You got to
Uh,
move.
Exactly. So going out throughout school, I actually that was like the worst combination you could ever think about because my teachers and myself valued my intellect and my personality as someone who resembled a like how do I say a scholar, you know. And I was in an honors program. I was in AP programs, but the thing is, I couldn't stay awake. I
Hmm.
literally couldn't stay awake unless the teachers asked me that they recognized I was about to fall asleep, and then they would tell me to get up and go outside and walk around the hallway just to clear my mind and get my energy back because my biggest problem was sitting down in a seat for 40 something minutes, 30 minutes. That just wasn't me. To the point where certain subjects like my algebra class or when I got into statistics, I had the same teacher. He would literally let me just stand up whenever I wanted to and just walk around the room just to get like a breath of fresh air, if anything. It got so bad. I remember one point I was in freshman or freshman year, and I was in English, and it was my midterms. Actually, no, it wasn't English. It was actually AP Human Geography, and I was taking my midterms, and I had fallen asleep. I literally fell asleep midterm because a tactic I used to normally keep me up. People like resemble it or refer towards like if they see it, not sure what the situation might be. They might think it's like restless leg syndrome, but I don't use my legs. I just normally tap a pen or twiddle my fingers like super fast or just I'll be the guy in the back of the classroom tapping on the desk. But the point is, I'm in the middle of a midterm. I can't do these distracting things. So I fell asleep and I woke up with like maybe 20 to 25 minutes left of
Mm,
the whole thing. And this is the AP midterm.
mm.
I was the only one in the entire classroom, and this is on my heartbeat. I was on the only one in the entire classroom to score 100 that year in that specific class throughout the grade, any of that. So that was just such an astounding moment just to realize that, like, that's when I realized that something that I thought that I struggled with my entire life, like, oh my gosh, I had such a stigma growing up, especially through public school. I was labeled the weirdo
Mm.
or the geek, the nerd, the kid who was in too many clubs because he literally just didn't want to be in one. And the point is, wow, when I got to that point, to that very moment, I realized that something that I thought was a disability, like Sophie, another member of this podcast, had mentioned earlier, is actually like a new ability, this sort of superpower that allows me to wake up at any moment and have my full potential and grasp
I like that. It's
and
cool.
be able to like be as creative as I can and be able to produce 100% of the time efficiently because most people lack like that motivation to spark the energy, but with our little subclass, like we live on our buzz, you know, the
This
energy
little
and the
group you
stuff.
have here tonight, we're all fellow soulmates on that particular feeling, right? I mean, it really,
Yes,
rather seeing
yes.
it as something that's positive, right? And getting the label or the diagnosis, did that help? Did that comfort you all? I mean, finally
It
have
really
someone define what was going on with you?
I'm sorry if this wasn't asked towards me
Well, I'll ask you
initially
first, and then
first.
I'll go around. I saw Ezra. I'd like to hear what Ezra looked like. You want to say something? You answer it first, Dave. Go ahead.
I got you, but yeah, it actually really did help me. Like
Mhm.
back to the stigma. Like before, I was. I mean, I knew I was what I had, but it was up
Mhm.
until middle school. We were doing like a stop bullying campaign as just the whole as a whole school, and I remember one of like the presentations during the auditorium was about autism, a spectrum. A speaker came in. He had written a couple books. He had suffered with Asperger's for pretty much all of his life. And the premise is that he went in depth on what other illnesses and disorders are considered to be on the spectrum.
Mm.
I didn't know at the time. My grandma's a nurse practitioner. She neglected to inform me because she didn't want to freak me out that ADHD is or ADD or any form is on I mean, is on the low side, but is takes place on the autistic spectrum. And my first instinct was to freak out even more because I was like, I knew I was weird before, but now they're trying to tell me that I'm autistic. And then I remember that was my first year going into band. I started as an alto saxophone player, and my best friend was Alex Sherrill, and he also suffered with a severe case of autism. Even though mine was on a low scale, his was actually severe to the point where he got, couldn't converse like us right now. But he was a musical prodigy. Like, he knew how to read scales by heart, notes by heart. He could write his own music almost. And this was in sixth grade. So at that moment, I took all the ego I had, or just the humiliation I thought I had gained from my peers, and I threw it away because I realized that what makes me so different is what makes me the best version of myself.
I think I think that's a great thing. Ezra, what do you think about what David's just talking about? I want you all to kind of respond to that because I think that's a big part of the show tonight with the stuff.
Yeah, I really think that ADHD really is it's part of us and it makes us different, but it also helps us a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that like it just there's a lot of things that only you can consider ADHD people to do. I mean, like, it lets us hyper focus on certain things to really get us through stuff. Like you said, Michael Phelps, all those people, they hyper focused on one thing. And I think that's really good. And, like, getting the diagnosis, it helps us because, whether it be getting the medication, at least in my case, that's what helped me. Or, and also it lets, like, awareness so people know how to help you or stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, the medication, 70 to 80% of kids that have this have benefited from medication.
Yeah, I mean, I got Adderall. I mean, we went through the whole thing, like Ritalin, all that stuff. But once we finally settled on Adderall, it really helped. Yeah.
Well, so for you also, you have a real passion for literature and creativity, and you're a sensitive guy. Don't you think that I have found for myself, and I know my co-host over here, and all of you and what David is saying and you're saying is that there's a sensitivity and depth to people that have this, right? It seems to be. Actually, it's been documented that people that have ADHD, ADD are very big inventors, artists, creative, breakthrough people.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about now, right, Ezra? I mean, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you all on medication?
No.
No?
I am.
You are. And Whitley, what do you think? Well, let's go to you now. What do you think about what Ezra and David have been talking about? We're on
yeah.
We're soul stretching ADHD right now.
No, I agree a lot with what they've said. Like, for me, it was really helpful to be told that I had ADHD because I always, as a kid, I was like, oh, I feel just a little bit different from everyone's. And I think all kids feel that way just a little bit because they all want to be, like the main character or whatever. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like there's something just a little bit more different. So kind of getting the validation of knowing like, oh, this is an actual thing. It isn't all in your head. That helped me a lot.
It's real. I mean, it would have helped me a lot to have known that.
Yeah. And then I got medication like right after I was diagnosed. So 5th grade, I think, was the first like school year that I actually was, on like a medication for ADHD. And I could definitely see a difference. Like, it was drastic. I could finally actually, concentrate on what the teachers were saying, because I used to have to turn around and ask the person behind me, like, oh, hey, what did they say? What's the homework assignment? Because I just would have spaced off or whatever. And also, like, I agree with what y'all were saying about the emotions, because I feel like with ADHD, your emotions are a little bit like closer to the surface, because I would cry during school all the time. And I hated it. I could not stand it. But once like I was on medication for it, I could like control myself. Like, I still had all of the emotions, because I know for some people, once they get medicated, if they're on like the wrong type of medication for them, like it suppresses their emotions a little bit. For me, it has never done that. It just lets me be more in control of them. Like, I'm aware they're there and I feel them, but like I don't start crying all the time.
Have you discovered, like David was saying and Ezra was saying, that there's these other parts of you, creative or deeper sense of parts of you that have come out? And then now you feel good about that?
Yeah, no, I really do. Like, I'll go through phases of where I do stuff. Like, I made a little bit of jewelry for a while, and then I made like some bracelets. I went through a phase where I'd just write a lot. Like I've gone through a lot of hobbies, I guess, and they were all in more of the like creative side.
And Sophie, you're not on medication, or you are on medication?
Oh, no, I'm not on medication.
Have you ever been on medication?
No, actually, I haven't, and I don't think I will be because I don't believe I need it. I mean, I might, but I don't think I need it at the moment because, like, I'm still really young and, like, I want to see if I can get better myself, if I can improve myself instead of just, like, I guess leaning on medication and depending on that to help me make myself a better person, like learning wise or like just as my emotions. And yeah, I just feel like I should be able to control my emotions by myself without a medication.
So far, you're doing okay with that. What do you?
Not really.
You have your moments, right? But so where do you go when you're struggling? Where do you go with it? Where do you go? Who do you reach out to?
Well, I'm struggling. I basically just lock myself in my room and I do my own thing. Like, for example, I just sit and listen to music because music is really the only thing I depend on, really. So,
Really?
like,
What
I'm like
does,
obsessed
what,
with it. So
what does the music do for you?
it just calms me down. So that's why in school, when I'm taking tests in a separate room, the teacher allows me to listen to music, and it really helped me. So
So do you feel that having this, like it seems a lot of people are talking about it, that you feel it's really advanced your appreciation of you and who you are and your sensitivity of you, and you don't feel like an oddball, you feel like you have your own power from this, as David was talking about?
yeah, I was always told that it's just a different ability to have. It's not a disability, and it's just it's just makes me feel really important because like I've always been told that the like coolest people, like the most famous and popular, have this ability, and I've always believed that, and I thought maybe I could be one of those people when I'm older. So
That's really cool. You know, there's something to be said. We all learn differently, and people learn differently. I learn differently, and Mike over here learns differently, and we find our way, don't we?
Dr. Don? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I thought that was just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
it's
I
a
thought
lot
it was
for
just
you
me
still.
too. My
No,
internet's been
yeah, I
down a
thought it
lot
was me
today.
too. Yeah. Oh God.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just got hit
I
off for him.
really thought that was
Jesus.
just me. Like, well, I was about to refresh the page.
Is Sophie frozen
was
for y'all
going-
too?
Yeah, Sophie's frozen for us.
Yeah.
For me too. Yeah.
And
Wow.
Dr. Don completely just stopped talking.
Okay, well, guess it's just us now.
Yeah. So
I mean,
This
it
is
was
how
a
y'all know it's really
social
live.
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
while we're here-
anything we keep it up from here.
I guess we just.
Yeah. On the same topic, I guess, like, I do agree
Yeah.
that there are a lot of good things that come with ADHD and it can be seen as a new ability, but it's also important to not overlook that there are negatives that come with it because
definitely.
it's good. It's good to focus on the positives as long as we don't forget the negatives, because I know a couple of my friends that just think about it as solely a superpower and then they just kind of ignore all the negatives that come with it. And you have to find the healthy balance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also have a lot of friends who
glad
like.
to hear,
You go.
in a sense, like it's coming more to light now, or like at least like people who have the condition are being doctored and like approached more like honestly and kindly than they were before. Because when I was younger, in school and everything, it definitely wasn't like, oh, I mean, if you had like a noticeably extreme case, then you would get the permission to have like extra time on your test and everything like that. But the point was that like if you seem like you were just a regular schmegular kid with a lot of energy, you were just casted in that pile and not known for what you're actually struggling with, you know? So therefore, like you could be in a classroom full of like 20 kids and they're all being loud, but you know why you're being loud because you can't help it. You're like you follow the circus. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then the point is like the teachers are looking at you not as an individual at that point, but in a whole different group that you know you're not in. Like back to the whole negative side of like AD. Like
Mhm.
I have outbursts that I can't control a large amount of the times, and it's not even like aggressive or anything. But I was always like the class clown as a kid, especially like any like any moment's notice really. If I could just to like ease the conversation that everyone was having, or just to like I don't know, just bring some sort of added excitement to a completely like stagnant room. I would have to make a joke, like and then
Oh yeah.
next thing you know, the whole classroom is out like and laughing, and you're just over here sitting in this bubble energy. Like this is how it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
us AD so-called kids only want like the best reaction out of everything. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
that's why I had to like take out like even that negative for myself. Like I had to realize
Yeah.
that like even though it seemed like I was sitting in school and talking when I wasn't supposed to or something like that. Oh, in a sense, school shouldn't be that strict and we won't touch on it.
Mhm.
And then two, like, like if I'm really just adding something like meaningful to the conversation, even if it is some sort of joy, then it should never be that much of a struggle, and you should never look at yourself as an adherence because you're doing something like that, which is why I don't think like schooling and a lot of society right now really helps us prepare for our life as kids with this like
Mhm.
disorder or whatever you like to label it as, because like we will get picked on, like I said, you either get classed
Yeah.
as a clown of the school or some sort of social outcast
Mhm.
in any sense, just
Yeah.
because you don't know how to phrase your words together as fast, or maybe you say it too fast.
Mhm.
And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
No,
No,
definitely.
like on that topic, do y'all feel like that you mask your ADHD a lot?
I definitely do, especially
A bit, maybe a
Yeah.
bit.
oh
No.
I should have like probably let someone else talk, but I'm hoping.
It's okay. I mean, I feel like I do a lot. It's something that I'm trying to work on. And I think that's a lot. I like have anxiety too, kind of like the whole shebang, because I know a lot of kids with ADHD also have anxiety and or depression. It's kind of like just like a big package of stuff. But I think a lot of my anxiety comes from trying to mask my ADHD to where it's not more like, oh, I'm worried people are going to judge me, but oh, I'm worried people are going to think that I'm not normal. And I know it's not good to have thoughts like that. Like I shouldn't be like, oh, well, my ADHD, if people think that I have it, that's a bad thing. I'm trying to like change my mindset on that.
You know
Oh,
what?
hey.
Oh, this is so cool, actually. I was thinking, what a night. You know what synchronicity is, by the way? Let me give you, you know the definition of synchronicity? The definition of synchronicity is what Carl Jung called a meaningful coincidence. What it means is that things happen that are not cause and effect. So isn't it amazing? The first time we've ever done a show where we lost the internet, it's stormy outside. And of all shows, we're talking about ADD and ADHD, and Sophie's talking about being in her room, finding her own way to be with herself and her music. And of course, now I'm tested because I had a certain rhythm to my show of what I was doing.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
I remember that's what we were talking about, right? Right, Sophie, we were on you, weren't we? So my ADD is cooperating.
Did you guys continue the show without us?
Yeah.
You guys, were you
Just
talking
a little
without
bit.
us? Oh, so what did I?
Just a
So
little.
let the viewers know, what did we miss during this synchronistic?
Well, no,
moment?
the viewers saw it. We're the only ones that don't know what happened.
Oh,
They kept going without us.
so the viewers were watching us. So
Yeah.
what did we miss?
Fill Dr. Dom
Yeah,
back
fill
in.
me in. What did we miss? Anything?
We were talking about how you have to look at the positives and negatives of having ADHD a lot, and then we just started talking about like masking your ADHD.
And what about masking your ADHD?
We had just kind of started, but what I was saying is I feel like a lot of my anxiety comes from not thinking, oh, people are judging me, but like, oh, people are going to think that what I'm doing isn't normal from like my ADHD if I'm not masking it completely. And that's something that I've been struggling with and trying to stop doing.
And just be yourself.
Yeah. And
That's
not be on guard all the time.
That's really great. It's good for you all that you kept the show going.
Yeah.
Michael and I were having anxiety attacks because, as we said, people who have ADD or ADHD, we don't like being disrupted. It throws us off.
No.
You know? It's like hitting a deep, dark cave, right?
Exactly.
Ezra, we've talked about that too, like not being concerned about other people, right? And just trying to
we definitely have.
Just be yourself, right?
Yeah.
And figure out your own way. And I love the positiveness that David got going about just embracing and feeling your own empowerment and not seeing this as a disability or something. Like, I'm telling you, it really damaged me when I was a kid. I didn't have a knowledge that you all have of knowing that this really is something that exists. And so I have something to ask you. I was having a discussion with a lawyer, and, so I'm trying to think now because I lost a little track. So Ezra, you're on medication, right?
Yeah, I am.
And we now, so Sophie's not, Whitley, you are. And David, did I ask you about the medication? Are you on medication or not?
Oh, we lost David's
volume. Did we lose you now, David? Well, okay. Well, if we get David back, he can answer that question. But we will get you back, David. Okay. This lawyer, I was talking to this lawyer, and she was talking to me about how a particular client of hers at 3:00 in the afternoon told her that she could not talk to her at 3:00 in the afternoon. David, are you back? All right, you know what? I'm able to now go to you and go back to my question after we're done with you, David. Are you on medication? This is really a testing baby tonight. Yeah, go ahead. Are you on meds?
I got you. I'm actually not anymore. I'll be 100% honest because it's been legalized. Thankfully, in my great town, I do self-medicate though. That's
Marijuana,
the reason why I'm not
weed.
Yeah.
Well, weed helps a lot of people. Whitley, you do weed too, or not? Anybody else?
No.
But weed, yeah. So weed settles you down. It relaxes you.
And
it's legal now, so that's even better. What's that?
Exactly. It really does, but it also it also shows me the different sides of my potential to the extreme, as in like whenever I smoke a little and I feel complacent and I lose my energy, I get more tired. I realize that obviously that is not my true form or true nature. So then when I'm sober completely, obviously, and I go to work or something and I'm buzzing off the ring and I'm jumping from car to car and I'm making sure everything is 100%. And I really see that like in every sense and like every in every form possible. I'm really like a Clark Kent version of myself, like all it takes is glasses, but the glasses are just this is my normal self. But my medication stopped when I was in middle school. I was prescribed Vyvanse, and then it was like Adderall, but at the time they didn't call Adderall.
It didn't work for you. You didn't like it. So the Clark Kent. When you say you Clark Kent, what is Clark Kent?
So what I mean by that is
that's a Superman character, by the way. For all of you who don't know, Clark Kent was the reporter who then turned into Superman and would go in the closet. So you were Clark Kent, the reporter, or?
It's the same example I was trying to give with the test where I woke up suddenly and I scored a high grade, but I can expand on that more so. Like my whole life I've struggled with this description of myself and the fact that I'm a super shy person, but I've always seemed outgoing because of this ability or whatever you like to call it. I have something called like liquid confidence, but without the liquid, without the alcohol, without any of that. I could drink water and feel a little bit more approachable to the crowd because I know that's the temperature of the room. Like I know what I'm supposed to do. But even though I'm actually like shy, for some reason my brain doesn't lose focus of the actual objective. Like for instance, when I was a kid, amongst other things, I was part of this scholar program in middle school and in high school called CFES, College for Every Student. I did robotics. I did the chess club. I was in track and field. I was in soccer. But I also used to hold presentations in the auditorium in my middle school, like basically like every other week, just to address certain social topics that they want to introduce into the school. As in, like I was mentioning before, the whole anti-bullying initiative. And I even remember for that assembly that I was like extremely scared. I felt like I was gonna piss myself. to the point where like I'm on stage shaking, but I'm shaking physically and my words aren't. That's the thing. That's the whole Clark Kent example I'm trying to use. Like, even though most people might crack under pressure, I feel like kids who are allowed to use, or at least fluidate through their mind so quickly, unlike other people, they have no time to feel pressure, even though it might be something that's like the anxiety of it. I think anxiety comes from the fact that we know that we can do it, but we just don't know how we can do it. And
Willie,
then
you're
when you're standing in front of an audience, you know, when you're standing in front of an audience trying to talk and everything, and you're just doing it, but then everything flies out the gate at that point, and you realize that you're seamless. But that's not. It's not just you. It's all of you. It's your whole makeup. And then when I put on the glasses, is when I smoke a little. That would be my self medication, because back when I was on like actual medication, I hated it. I thought it made me a robot. And then on top of that, when they started giving me like Adderall, I thought it made me like I thought it induced the ADHD even more. To be
so it's
honest,
different.
because
So
I
it's
had
basically
taken
it's different. It's different for everybody. Whitley, you seem to be responding to what David is saying.
No.
What's your response
Yeah.
to what's David saying?
I agree. For me, my ADHD works a lot like how yours does, like you were saying, except the one thing where mine doesn't. Like when I go into a big group or whatever, I'm not extroverted at all. I just tend to be very withdrawn and stuff, but that's probably my anxiety. But where mine does come out like yours does. And if like with this right now, like I don't really feel much anxiety. Like I feel like I can just talk. And whenever I have to give big presentations or talk in front of a bunch of people, it's really easy. And I agree with what you're saying, kind of like the Clark Kent thing. It's almost like I'm putting on a performance, but it's just,
seriously.
I already know the lines almost. Like it's not, there's no real anxiety behind it, except right before I walk up on stage, like right before I log on to this, that's when I feel a lot of anxiety. And then right after it's over, I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I just do?
How you doing right now?
Right now, like I'm fine. Like
Good.
I'm just, talking. And it's the same thing during tests. My ADHD, it's like I get a little nervous and a little distracted beforehand, but while I'm taking it, like I guess I just hyper focus. So I'm just like pretty much okay unless there are a lot of distractions around. And then after I'm like, oh, I have no idea how I did. And that's when I start freaking out and getting distracted by everything around me.
Ezra, what do you think about what they're saying?
At least with me, more or less, I've been able to. It's usually it's the before same. It's before is when I'm usually really worried about stuff. And with tests, normally with that, I got extra time with that stuff, so I usually am pretty relaxed with that. I don't worry too much about that stuff. So normally I'm pretty relaxed and calm when it comes to that stuff. Yeah.
Did you all get on-time testing, by the way? Is that something that all of you got?
Yeah. I don't know.
I didn't.
At least for me, I did.
You got it, Ezra. On time. Does everybody here get on-time testing? And well, David, you're around there, but when you're at school, not everybody gets that. No?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
Yes.
I think I could if I asked for it, but I make good grades. Like I'm in honors classes, and I'm sure it could help bring my grade up like a point or two. But for me, I haven't gotten distracted enough during tests to feel like it's necessary, I guess.
How about you, Sophie?
Personally.
You have on time,
I was
Sophie?
actually
David, is that you talking now?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
Continue though.
I was going to ask you anyway. I'm going to ask you and Sophie, did you have on-time testing when you were at school?
Yeah, I did have a hard time testing actually. Like,
Was that helpful?
for example, what?
Is it helpful to have on-time testing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess it was kind of stressful though because I was worried. Because I depend on the having zero time at all, and I'd think, oh, I guess I can just stop whenever, do it whatever. But one time when I had kind of on-time testing, I just couldn't get this problem done on my math test. So she said, you can just, it was about, I think it was before a 3-day weekend. So she took away my test and she said, you can work on this on Tuesday, because I was struggling so hard. I almost cried again, because I cry. I'm a very emotional person. She was like, she felt so bad for me because I was really upset that I couldn't get it done, because like I had no time. So I was like, oh, maybe if I just take a break and just walk around the school for a little bit, that'll be fine. So I asked to go to the bathroom, and I walked around the whole school campus once. Then I came back to the room, and I still couldn't do it. So that's, I feel like on-time testing is helpful, but in situations it's not.
And you got a free pass on that? Did they understand and give you empathy and compassion for that?
My learning strategies teacher, she understood. And then I finished the test because I only had like 2 or 3 questions left a couple days after, because I was just struggling so much.
Do you all have 504s? The 504s are when the school gives you extra help. Do you all have 504s or special ed? No, David did not have it. How about you, Whitley and Ezra? You get that help? Get that special?
I did. I definitely got that.
So I want to ask, because I'm kind of touched by what you just said, Sophie. So how do all of you, and I'd like each one of you to address this. I have a couple of questions still left tonight. How do you all want to be treated? Like Sophie just got a lot of understanding and patience with what she was struggling with. What do you want people who are watching the show to understand about what is the best thing for people to do in terms of helping you live with this? What is the best thing people can do? Ezra?
I think is understand that like you need to give them time. Like just telling them, just keep doing it, you're gonna do it. Like my mom, even though after I'd say like a couple years it finally helped. I had dyslexia, but because my ADHD, she just kept telling me to keep reading and reading and reading, and I hated doing it for a long time. Mm-hmm. But eventually I hyper focused and I started to enjoy it, but it was not easy for a long time. I definitely hated it.
But what's the most helpful thing?
Is understanding that you need to kind of ease it into them. You can't just force it, tell them that it's that. You need to specifically understand that everyone is different, and in this case I need to be a bit more I need to do it a little bit more slowly instead of as quick as it
and trust and respect that you have your own way of learning and your own process.
Exactly.
Whitley, would you say the same thing?
Yeah, for a lot of it I'd just say just treat us like we're normal people, but also be patient. And if you have a friend or a family member that has ADHD, read up on it a little bit. I know that I tend to talk really fast and I talk a lot. And I get really excited about little things. So just be patient with that and just kind of understand that's my ADHD. And I'm not trying to be rude whenever I interrupt or whatever. I just get really, really, really excited about what I want to add to the conversation.
Not be judged and respected for who you are.
Yeah.
David, would you say that's the same for you?
Yes, sir. I mean, to just expand, obviously, just let us have the ability to suggest strategies for learning, So whether it be in school or with your parents or anything, just give us the space and the time, if it's extra time needed, to come up with our own solutions to anything.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
Seriously, that's always going to be the easiest and the most comfortable way for us to approach anything, and obviously it causes the less stress in the aftermath. So,
that's really great. You know what I wanted, Ezra? I wanted for people watching the show. You all have been talking about hyper focus tonight. For the people that are watching and are trying to learn about this, can you define or explain what you mean for the audience about what it means? Because so many of you talk about hyper focusing. What is hyper focusing?
Me?
Yeah, what is it for you?
For me, that is when everything just kind of the stars align and there's just one thing and I just do it. It's
that's just zero in it. For me, when I'm anxious, I might just look at a piece of artwork or embrace my room, which is full of art, and just lock into that. Is that what that means?
Yeah, you kind of lock into it. You kind of just get really into it, and you just kind of go with it.
Does it relax you? Billy, does it relax?
Yeah, I guess it relaxes me, but it also it kind of, for me at least, it gives me a sense of fulfillment that I did something, whether it be just cleaning my room, reading, or just playing a game. It just gives me that sense of fulfillment that I'm doing something.
Everybody else agree with that? We all on the same page with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have a question from Lynn Butt on Facebook, and
Okay.
she said, "What's involved in finding out if my child has ADHD?"
Okay.
Um,
Good for you
I
to
think,
do a question.
yeah. I'd say start out and just do a little bit of research, make sure like trusted websites like they teach us in school, like .org or whatever, the medical sites, but also go to like a professional, like either your normal like doctor, like your kid's doctor, their pediatrician, or a counselor, because they can give the actual diagnosis. Don't like diagnose yourself or your child. Like to get a real diagnosis, you have to go to a doctor. But
They
if
actually
you have any questions, just ask.
they actually have these surveys now that
Mm-hmm.
doctors and nurses, practitioners, and pediatricians use, where there's questionnaires. It used to be psychological testing. That's all that was used that could actually diagnose it. But they now have questionnaires that you can use for that as well. And what do you all think about going for therapy for this? Do you think therapy is helpful if someone's really struggling, because it affects your mind? Sophie, what's that look, Sophie? What do you want to say about that?
Well, I kind of have trouble telling strangers heal. So I've always stayed away from therapy because I'm like so like anxious about it. Like my parents have always suggested, "Oh, we should get you to therapy. Maybe it'll be better and maybe it'll help you." And I've always just said, "No, I don't want it because I don't feel comfortable talking to someone I'm not familiar with about my problem. I don't like it. I just don't like the sound of it. It's just
Okay. Anybody want to disagree with that? We have three other people. Go ahead, Whitley, and then Ezra.
Yeah, for me, like I completely understand where you're coming from, and I was like in therapy and counseling for a couple months, and I'm about to go back into it because it was really helpful for me. And it is really awkward starting off because you're talking to a random stranger about like the deepest parts of you that you don't really talk about. But for me, it was really helpful to just kind of feel the validation of knowing, oh, like I'm not crazy, and just kind of getting advice on how to, continue with life. Now I could be completely wrong, but I think that you're like a very independent person and you like kind of solving your own problems. But it's not a bad thing to try and get help from someone else, especially since we are young. And I went into it thinking that I wouldn't gain much from it, but I was wrong because
It really helped
you learn a lot about yourself and the world around you.
What's the best part for you? What did you learn the most, or what was most helpful about it for you?
For me, like the most helpful thing was really to just feel that I was in a safe space where I could talk about anything that I needed to and not feel judged, and then get advice on how to make things better.
And Ezra, how about for you? What's your feeling about that?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that I think ADHD itself is not exactly something you should get therapy for, but in my opinion, I think it's like the results of it, like stuff like like how you can be labeled, like David brought up, how you can be labeled as a class clown. I think the stuff that happens because of the ADHD is stuff that I think would be great if you get counseling for.
Like the things that come with it, like being teased or bullied.
Yeah, those stuff. It's like it's not like ADHD itself, but more like the full package.
That's a very good point, Ezra. Thank you for that point. I think that's very well taken. And David, what do you think about that therapy? What's your opinion about therapy for this? We lost you, David.
We lose David. David,
did you hear my question, David?
Again.
All right. Well, we lost David, but I didn't lose when we lost our internet. There are two questions, and I actually remember now one of them. I actually remember both of them. So we're going to try to make up a little time, but we lost live on the show. We're going to go a couple of extra minutes for people that got cheated of our internet interruption. So I can get these two questions in. David, are you still out?
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
You're not out. David, just quickly, because we're running out of time, could you just tell us what you think about therapy, and do you think therapy is helpful?
So I personally, I'm undergoing my own therapy, but not for ADHD. I was in rehab for drug abuse, and for when I was younger, for hallucinogenics, and I did not like it. See, this is the craziest part because I had like really three different versions of rehab, but two like fundamental like
Mhm.
categories. Like one was in obviously in a patient facility in an in-house where I would meet him. Gladly, it wasn't like I was living there, but I would meet him 3 times a week just to obviously get my drug test and to talk to him as well. And then the other therapy was I had gotten apprehended for having the contraband that brought me into rehab in the first place. And I had gotten tossed away to this beautiful program called the Wilderness Camp, and the premise of that was it was a therapeutical retreat where it was me and I'd say maybe 8, 9 to other like-minded young adults. We embarked on a hike from Connecticut to about from the tip of Connecticut to Maine, all through the Appalachian Trail, and that was the most like impactful form of therapy I could ever
Yeah.
reproduce.
What
Because
I
when I
want,
was
yeah.
in solid, I'm sorry.
No, what I want to ask you, Dave. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but we're kind of pressed for time. What I wanted to ask you though is, when you got into your drug problem and all that, do you think it was like, as Ezra was saying, it's not necessarily the ADHD, but the things that you experienced for being a little different? Do you think self-esteem, anxiety,
That's the
stress, being
thing.
who you were, created some of that got you into trouble and got you in needing to do the
Oh,
rehab?
definitely.
Okay.
I was super depressed as a kid. I was
Because you felt
insecure. I
different, right? And you felt
still
what was wrong
am.
with me, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Self-esteem.
sir.
And that was all
On
attributed to
top of
this,
that,
all attributed to what we've been talking about tonight, right?
yes, sir. And on top of that, like on top of all the insecurity and added stress I was feeling from my condition, when I would go to my therapy, people are sometimes blessed with having a therapist that would take the time and seem that they're very personable. But I I was part of a program that stemmed from basically like a suicide prevention hotline. So like their approach was personable, but it seemed like they already their energy was already used for the day. So I would come in hopes of closure for an issue, but then end up almost falling asleep in the chair. Or
So
on the other
the
note,
wilderness,
like when I
the,
had
wil- the wilderness was more helpful. The wilderness.
exactly like for instance, just to like remark one more time about the solitary therapy, like what is it? When I would go there and I had a beautiful day, it would
In
just bring
nature.
me down like so,
In
so
nature.
much. I felt I
You know,
felt like 3 times more depressed because I would have a great day and then go to therapy and I have to talk about basically absolutely nothing with a
so
therapist who's getting
so
money from my
so
discourse.
so it sounds like you're saying a little bit like what Sophie was saying, that it's nice to have, and I felt this way, that solitariness, that place to be like in the wilderness, you mean in nature, that was actually more
Yeah.
helpful. You're saying that
Like even
to just be with
even
yourself,
if
like
it's
Sophie goes in
music
her
in
room and
your
listens to
room.
music. What's that, Dave?
Yeah, yeah. I know, no, it was literally what you just said. Even if it's
Yeah,
music in your room, like
yeah.
yeah, the solitary therapy,
This
because our
that's
minds need time and space
We need that quietness, right? Ezra,
to
you were shaking your head. You think that too,
exactly.
Whitley? You
Mhm.
both say that too? Certainly
Yeah,
for
I
me.
agree.
Yeah. Mike, how about you? You think that for you is helpful too, to have that quiet time with yourself? You sculpt. You're an artist. You like
Yeah,
that kind
a
of.
lot of the time when
Yeah.
what I do is like, you know, if I'm sculpting or if I'm working out or if I'm doing something, a lot of people like music. Like I like silence. I like hearing my own breath.
Yeah.
I like
Let it.
listening to just the environment, and that's when it's quiet, but there's like that white noise or like that background noise. That's when I can stay the most focused.
So I think one of the things research is showing is that meditation and exercise is really good for people that live where we live with what we're talking about tonight. So I have 2 questions. I'm going to get them out very quickly, but they're important, and we got cheated some time, so I'm going to cheat a little bit on time to get these out. They're 2 very important questions. Remember earlier I was saying, before I was interrupted, that this lawyer had a client who was scheduled to meet with her at 3:00 in the afternoon, who had ADHD. And for those of you who know about medication, there are all different kind of time releases and times of when the medication works. And we basically, people that are going through this have to adjust their lives, right, Ezra, sometimes around that. in terms of when they're functioning at a good level and not a good level. So what happened, which is interesting with the lawyer, and I had trouble with what the lawyer said, actually. What happened was the client, came forward to tell the lawyer that 3 o'clock was not a good time to have a meeting because she had ADHD and that her medication was not at the optimal level. Because the serotonin, which, by the way, that's what these medications do. They increase the energy. That's what the serotonin is. This is a neurological. This is not just a psychological thing that happens to all of us. This is neurological. And so what happened was she was honest with the lawyer about why she couldn't talk at 3 o'clock. And the lawyer basically said, that's just not a good excuse. It's inexcusable. You have a meeting at 3 o'clock, and did not accept the ADD or ADHD explanation with the medication. I'd like to know what you all think about that. Ezra, well, let's go to Dave first. Go ahead, Dave. Brief answers, Dave, because we don't have a lot of time. You're silent again. Go ahead. Can we hear you, Dave? We'll get back to you. Ezra?
With me and medication, usually like with what it does, that basically it boosts everything up to 11, and you can't stay at 11 all the time, so you eventually just crash. And when you do that, you just get really tired, really depressed. I mean, everything is at the lowest it can be. So do you yourself feel the lowest you can be. So
do you think it was good that that person told the lawyer at the meeting that she couldn't do it? And what did you think about her doing that? And then how the lawyer handled that? Do you think
I think it was pretty fair that, she told her, but I don't think it was good that the lawyer said that she couldn't do it because, in all honesty, it's going to be on her. She's the one who has to do the work there. And if she can't get the information she needs out of her client, I mean, that's just bad business.
So are you saying the lawyer was right to basically?
No, the lawyer was wrong.
The lawyer should have been flexible.
She should have been more open-minded and understandable about that stuff.
Just like when Sophie was having trouble when she was in her exam, to have that understanding and that patience. How about you, Willie?
Yeah.
What do you think in that situation?
I think that it's difficult to understand the whole ADHD is a thing and the medication shift if you don't have experience with it. But I think that the doctor could have handled it a lot better, tried to be more understanding.
It's actually a lawyer, but it's a lawyer, but
sorry, my bad.
Really
the lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, the lawyer could have, if she was like, sorry, we can't do that because she had conflicting times or she couldn't do a time other than 3, that would make sense. But sometimes you need to make allowances for people, especially with things like this, something that's out of their control. So I think that she could have handled it a lot better.
And to be flexible, it's like Naomi Osaka. For all of you that mentioned, I mentioned her a couple of weeks ago when she was depressed at the French Open, or I think it was the French Open, and she didn't tell people. She looked like a prima donna. She didn't want to go to the interviews, but she had come forward and just said, I'm depressed and I don't feel comfortable doing interviews. Having self-disclosure and being honest about who you are, which has been coming up a lot tonight. There's something to be said about just being okay and proud and okay with who you are, right? And what about you, Sophie? What do you think about that situation with the lawyer and her client?
I also believe that they could have worked it out differently instead of just canceling each other out. I don't like how situations are mostly one-sided, and I don't believe that. I don't know. I just don't think that it should have been so one-sided, and that they should both have worked things out better instead of just going. Yeah.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
It seems like unanimous. David, are you on now?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us a brief answer on that question? I know you have a lot to say tonight. I love your energy, but we just don't have the time. So just give us a brief answer.
And just to wrap it up, what is it? I'm actually, what is it? I obviously disagree with that notion from the lawyer. I do think that she should have been more sensible. However, it's very hard for us as people with this condition, because even throughout school, you had the certain teachers who would look at you just like the lawyer, as if I didn't really believe your plea for help, So there, we ride with the stigma that our excuses aren't actual excuses, they aren't validated even if we have medication. And especially,
you know what?
And especially,
Especially what, Dave?
No, I was saying, especially if once you grow in age, like I'm a person who knows that they still suffer with this condition, but I swear people like to treat me like even my own loved ones like to treat me like I don't have something wrong with me just to prove a point that they might have, So
you just
segued
segued me
and it's
into
not nothing wrong,
yeah,
but
you just segued me into my convenient last question of the night that I'm going to get it out tonight.
You're gonna get one more in there.
Yeah, I have
We're
one
pushing
more.
the boundaries
I'm
of
pushing
the
it down,
internet
but we
tonight.
also lost some time on the internet. So
Well, they kept going without us. I don't
I know,
think
but
we
I
lost
feel like
anything.
I want to do this. Is that okay? Can I get away with that?
One quick question.
One quick question.
I think everyone has ADD. They're losing their attention.
I
for the
don't really.
show.
Am I losing your attention? I actually don't agree with my co-host. Am I losing your attention? Because I feel like we lost some time. So my ADD says I can borrow a couple extra minutes, and I got to ask this last question.
Okay.
Which is an
Go
important
ahead.
question of the night, and it really David set me up for it. And this question sets me up for
Go
the
for
second
it.
question, which is that's the beauty of it being the host of the show, Mike.
Listen, you're the boss. Whatever you want to do.
I can
Go
be
ahead.
the boss sometimes. You're the boss sometimes. I'll be the boss right now.
Okay, go ahead.
And so what I want to say is, it's really interesting. There are kids and people that don't take this seriously. They think it's an excuse. They think you're all right, and you're just kind of getting untimed testing and getting your medication. And even in college, we know that there's a real black market for Adderall for kids to take their exams. And it becomes a real controversial thing now for people about whether this really is for real and that you guys are just using this as an excuse and that everybody wants to have ADD and that it gets dismissed by some of the people that really do use it for just the meds or use it to just get out of things. So the fact that you are all the real deal, and so am I and my co-host, and now you can be glad that we have that extra minute. I just very quickly want to know what you think about that. Ezra, very quick answers.
Can you be like just a little bit more specific about what you want me to answer?
Good for you. What do you think about people diminishing or minimizing, or people pretending they have ADD, or taking your mantle away?
I mean, I have many friends who use ADHD as an excuse to like not have to listen to people talk and stuff like that. I mean, it's annoying because it's one thing. It's like there's just so much wrong with how they're saying it or how they're acting that just kind of like, you sure about that? And other times it's just insulting. Yeah. I mean, overall though, it's just annoying, but it's I think everyone has it to some extent, so it makes sense. But for the people like us who kind of have it to another degree, it can be kind of annoying, especially when it's something that at least at times you've had to deal with a lot.
Good answer. And Sophie, quickly, your turn. Go ahead. Last word.
I believe that it's really infuriating because on social media there are so many there's so many little kids who are like under my age that pretend they have it, and they're like, oh my god, don't hate on me, it's just my disability and I can't help it. And there's a ton of people in my school who fake it too, and it's just it's so upsetting because I feel like they're mocking the people who actually have it and I feel like they don't really understand that what we're going through is way worse and it's actually really tough and they don't want it. And it's just, if you fake having it, you don't realize that it's something you don't want. It's so hard to deal with and people cope differently from it, but it's not cool, man.
Thanks for that, Sophie. I agree. I can see where that's not cool. Whitley, your turn. Last word, and then Dave, you're going to get a last word in, but quick last word, Dave. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
As a girl with ADHD, I'm used to people just being like, oh, well, do you really have it? Because girls are actually like underdiagnosed with ADHD because boys, especially when they're little, their hyperactivity shows through because they're bouncing off the walls, they're going everywhere. Girls will usually, not all the time, but like we'll just sit and we'll just daydream. We'll just nod along to whatever everyone's saying. And like I fidget all the time. Like if you go back and watch this, I fidget with my necklace half the time I'm talking. So it's more difficult to see in girls and it's underdiagnosed. So as a girl, I'm used to people being more like, well, do you actually have it? So people pretending that they have it does bother me. If you actually think you have it, go see a doctor, get diagnosed. But if you don't, it's not like an, oh, haha, I'm making a joke funny thing. It's an actual thing that people struggle with.
And you're absolutely correct. Women are actually considered not to have as much as men. So that's a very good point. David, I'm very quickly, go ahead.
I think it's like a sort of like a 50-50 approach, as in like I don't mind people saying that it's an excuse, because I feel like that's my chance to prove them wrong, you know? And then on top of
Okay,
that,
so that's the rebel in you, right? So that's the rebel. So, so I want to say something about the rebel, because the other thing is, you've also been accused by some people, particularly guys, that have that oppositional behavior and rebellious behavior, David, is related to this diagnosis. Would you say there is
I def
you think there is that,
yes,
that
sir. Yeah, I would
opposition?
definitely
And
agree.
what is the root of that oppositional trait?
It's
What
because,
makes
well,
somebody
we
do that?
have the extra time and capacity to think more than twice about any situation,
So that makes you
guides you
into challenging.
which guides you into exactly. It's far from challenging. It just guides you to approach everything the way that you personally want to take it. Therefore, it's
Interesting.
gonna step on so many toes, and then people are gonna look at you like you're crazy because you're not doing the conventional thing. Like, for instance, like I graffiti, I skateboard, but I don't skate street anymore, even though all my friends do, and I skate tranny a different way. There's so many ways to look at
So,
everything, and
yeah,
people
so
don't take the time.
So Ezra, what is the root of this oppositional behavior of somebody that has this? That somebody wants to you want to fight back. You want to like challenge and not necessarily agree, and sometimes even rebel, right? Guys,
Yeah,
guys are accused of this much more than women, by the way. So that's why I'm asking you guys.
I'll be honest. I mean, I also had my rebellious thing, but I don't really know the root cause of it. I mean, whether it be just people not understanding us or something like that, I've never really known.
Maybe you just want to get heard.
Maybe
Possibly,
yeah.
And I'm going to end on that note. Actually, maybe you just want to get heard. You want to get understood, and we should get underneath what looks like anger and rebellion, and just try to understand what it's like to live with this.
Yeah, that's
what is it like, and just allow us, and then try to have the patience that Sophie was talking about, and the understanding and respect to be who we are, and that we learn differently, and that you are people that beat to your own drum, creative, sensitive, passionate, intelligent, by the way, not stupid, actually very bright. And I'd like to end the show on that note.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. That's a great way to end the show. And thanks everybody for participating in Kids Are Talking. We're gonna throw you guys backstage if you want to hang out for a couple minutes.
Before we do that, Whitley, it was nice to have you. Ezra, it was nice to have you.
Thank you,
David and Sophie, and from all of us at Kids Are Talking, Mike, they can go backstage and we can have our little summary right now about losing the internet tonight and how we did.
I don't know. We may still lose the internet. Who knows?
All right. So what do you think? I know we ran a little late, and I pushed you on that, but I felt that I didn't want to cheat the public. I wasn't gonna let technology do that to us, Mike. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Technology does that. I mean, the beauty is with the virtual studio, the show can go on without us.
They did
we
that.
don't have to actually be here, so the kids did a good job in that.
Yeah, but typical ADD for me is I had some agendas that I had to get done, and it got me out, and I went into my cave, and I kind of felt like I had things I wanted to do and get out and say. So I kind of rebelled. Right. I rebelled against you.
Right. No, that sounds good.
I don't feel badly about it. So there you go. That's it for tonight.
So next week we have a great show coming. Sex and relationships, right?
No, sex and relationships, or sex and love, or maybe relationships
I think too. Love and relationships.
Love, relationships.
Who knows? But I think it's going to be a great show. I'm excited. Okay. And I guess from all of us at Kids Are Talking, thank you for watching. Thank you to M&D Properties, and thank you to Paradigm Financial Partners.
And those kids were amazing. Thank you.
Thank you to the kids for being part of the show.
Brave, creative, passionate kids. Kids Are Talking.
Kids Are Talking. Have a good night.
Good night.